You're listening to Data Science Leaders, the premier podcast for executives tackling the world's most important challenges using the power of machine learning. Let's dive in. It's not easy to transform any business with AI and machine learning, but it's particularly challenging in heavily regulated, risk-averse industries like insurance. So how have folks pulled it off? This episode is again coming to you from RevX London, where I got to speak with Raj Mukherjee. He's head of data science and AI at the British insurer Direct Line Group, and he shared his secrets to delivering rapid impact with AI. Well, by way of introduction, I guess we should start with who here has their insurance from Direct Line Group? Excellent, a couple of you. Yeah, so Direct Line Group, arguably one of the most innovative companies in the insurance space. And with us we have Raj Mukherjee, head of data science and AI. And I wanted to start, unlike a lot of sessions where we do a lot of introductions and we talk about various things, I wanted us to go straight to the good stuff. Okay. We all want to know what are the cool things that other folks are doing in the AI space. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you're most excited about?
I think if I look at our entire value chain of insurance, we're doing several projects across the value chain, right? So we're doing some very innovative work around in the pricing, really trying to understand how we can better the pricing models using ML, segmentation techniques, so on and so forth, in a classical space as well. But then on all the way around in the LLM and GenAI space, we've done some interesting production pilots in our customer contact center space, really trying to see how AI can augment our contact center agents, taking some of the cognitive load away from them, and then enabling them to do what they do best, which is customer service, which is empathizing a customer. Because, when we get a claim, it's often not so great time for our customers, right? So we need to sort of give them that space. So we're augmenting our contact center agent with a GenAI capability to be able to serve our customers better. Right? So that's another spectrum of it. And then there are a whole lot of things in the middle of it, which is, I think in the morning, we're talking about your constant process improvement, constant government improvement, constant platform improvements, right? And obviously, Domino has been a great partner in terms of platform and process work.
Excellent. Well, I mean, what you described, it's a spectrum of projects. One of them is about as core to the business as you can get. Yeah. I'm imagining in terms of moving the needle for the performance of the company, pricing is probably about as core
as it can get.
And they're presumably primarily using traditional, quote unquote, traditional or predictive AI methods.
Definitely.
There. But then to the other side of these are other use cases which are just as important for the customer experience, but ones that we really couldn't go after before, but now we can do more effectively with GenAI.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting space. I think we are all in, which is we're kind of in a macroeconomics position where, from an economic perspective, inflation and GDP, and then there's a geopolitical tension. So I think what happens is companies are actually looking for innovative area to grow and innovative ways of growing. And I think what we see is AI is kind of becoming that lever to sort of pull it in a responsible and a valuable fashion to then give us opportunities to grow. And I think that's where we see some of those use cases which we previously were kind of not happening because of the not advancement in technology wasn't there. We're able to now do it in a fashion which we're doing it now, right?
Gotcha. I mean, it sounds like this is like digital transformation 2.0. So it's
definitely.
We're now the AI and the machine learning and the data-driven approaches towards improving our business are effectively the core levers by which we can pull in order to change it.
Definitely.
Which is both exciting and really, really scary, because if this doesn't work, then we're out of options. But would love for your insights on how do you actually drive that kind of innovation and transformation.
Yeah.
Insurance not really known as always being on the cutting edge of innovation, heavily regulated and so on. What's the best way to get started with this and drive that change?
So I can talk about the way we have looked at it. Hopefully that will resonate with some of the audiences over here. So when we've taken a page from the lean startup concept, right? So there are some ideas which are innovative, which is we don't know the success rate of those ideas, right? I'm going to talk about those ideas because there are some ideas which are not sort of, like we know the success rate, we know it's a machine learning use case, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to keep that, park that aside. So the ideas where we're going to, let's say we're going to seed a project But when we see the project, we kind of do it with a strong business value and KPI ideas, right? So we kind of go after, these are the KPIs we want to measure, right? This is the business value we can get at, right? And let's go ahead and do a pilot on it. And the pilot has to be a real life pilot, not just a technology pilot, sort of involve the broader team in it. It's not only there's a technology team or a data team, but also SMEs, but not stop at SMEs, especially in the new AI use cases. We have to sort of start bringing in privacy, security, legal, procurement, to sort of within the team to be able to drive a business pilot, right? And what we've then seen is once we have done that, we then measure, go ahead and have a measurement framework of measuring those KPIs and be able to then go back to our board or exco to say, this is how this is impacting the top line or the bottom line or whatever it is, right? That actually had that, and be able to do that in about 12 weeks cycle. It's a challenge, but that's for how we've sort of seen this kind of things working. And helped our innovation case, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing, it sounds like one of the key problems around leveraging artificial intelligence is actually stakeholder management. There are just so many folks that need to be involved in this and aligned, brought on the same page, and kept moving towards this goal. Who does that? I mean, presumably that's the role of the AI leader. And so you have folks who are now empowered to do this. But how do you get leverage on that? Are there who helps the AI leader with that? Are there product managers? Is this data scientists individually who do this?
So we have an organizational structure where, some of our senior data scientists, I think in the morning we're talking about how important to data scientists to have a really good knack of getting into business problem solving, right? Not just the technical side of data science or the modeling side of the data science, right? So we're fortunate in that way that we've got some senior data scientists who are kind of acting as almost pseudo product people as well. But we have some product owner involved in that team. So when we spin up our innovation team, it's kind of a virtual team, which is bringing in all these kind of people in to be able to drive that. But most importantly, when we start doing the engagement, it's important to get the business to have a sponsorship of it, right? The business areas. That's kind of slightly on me to get that sponsorship and to be able to have a stake into that POC or a pilot. And I think that is super important, because if upfront we cannot get a business value and cannot measure the KPIs and agree on that, we will not even look at that. We will park it, move it something else, right? And once we have that sort of a business sponsorship, the cross-functional team, so to speak, right? I think things gets easier. It's never that easy, but easier from that stakeholder management perspective. And then the most important thing is communication, because communication takes a big part, right? So how do you communicate to the different types of audience, right? If you're doing something cutting edge, you have to communicate to the CTOs and architectural and security folks from that very technical perspective. So make sure that you have those communications ready, right? And while you're communicating the same thing, but to your, chief product officer, it's a slightly different bit of communication, because it's all about value, what value we can bring to his or her product, right? And then similarly to the CFOs and the CXOs, because CFOs and CXOs will be interested in, are we signing up to the expense? Are you saying that cost will reduct? If that is true, then are we going to take it off the budget next year? And those are very difficult conversations, to be honest, because the product person will sitting there and saying, is our product going to work? So we have to give that product person the assurance that yes, it's going to work. It is going to take away that cost from your product. And thereby you can sign up to that expense reduction. Right? Yeah. And these are very difficult conversations to have. But I think those difficult conversations have to be had. Otherwise, enterprise AI will not move in enterprise.
Yeah,
because it's a business thing to do. It's not just a technical thing or a data science thing to do.
Well, I mean, it brings us in the question of trust. I mean, they need to have that trust that you're going to be able to deliver on it, whether it's actually going to deliver against that KPI that you expected to, and for the magnitude that that you're promising for, all the way through to, and that you're actually going to be able to deliver the outcome, and that you're going to be able to have the data to be able to do that, and be able to build a model that will actually have enough signal and enough predictive power to be able to work against it. So there's a lot of trust in this. I guess I'm curious. Obviously, there's stakeholder management, there's getting them involved, there's keeping them up to date and communicating with them. But what other secrets are there to building that kind of trust in the organization? Is it because they've already seen the successes that you've had before, and they're saying, well, you've actually delivered on this before, so therefore we're going to trust you on the next project, or can that trust be accelerated and engineered without that history?
So there is obviously the credibility bit, which you said, that have you done your first projects for well, and thereby there is a general story about, okay, this team can be trusted, right? But I think that can go so far, because the other trust is, as a data science and AI organization, do we trust the overall? So data science and AI is nothing without data, right? We have been working on our data strategy for the best part of 4 years now. Executing the strategy, not on the strategy only, but executing the strategy. 75% of our business is working on the new data strategy stack, right? Which means we've got our data management sorted, some of the governance things sorted, engineering sorted. I think in the morning we were talking about that sort of building a muscle power within the organization, that we can do some of these stuff. We don't really go back to the design 101 question every time we start something, right? And that sort of starts rubbing into the business folks as well, right? Okay, we've done this, so they can do that as well, right? So I think that sort of also give the trust back to data scientists. So we know where the data is. We know we can get that data. We have the tooling in the right space. Yes, there are some odd security issues, but we can walk through it because we have done. So there's an intrinsic trust in the team that, okay, we can deliver, right? And I think it's a mix of those things. And it's not that we've been doing this for just now. We've been doing it for, like I said, a best part of 4 years. And I think the success that we are seeing now is a kind of hard work of best part of four years.
Yes, I mean, I see that in a lot of the production Gen AI use cases that I've been able to find that are out there. Invariably, it is folks who already have very strong data capabilities. They've built a lot of data science capabilities. They've got processes around this. They're used to building products. And so it feels that this is for all of the promises that we have around generative AI going in and be able to democratize all of this, which it can, but amazingly enough, it just turns out that the folks who are able to turn these into really transformative applications actually have been on this journey for a really, really long time. And this is an evolution of their traditional machine learning and predictive AI capabilities.
No,
it sounds like
it's that's the same case for us. And I think in the morning, someone was saying about there's no silver bullet. And that's really true. There isn't any.
Yeah. Well, it almost sounds like, well, what's the best way? What's the best foundation to get started on Gen AI? And it sounds like, well, the best foundation is to have a good foundation on the machine learning and data science side of things. Or is that a stretch? Was it possible, do you think, in order to have when you're talking about the Gen AI use case for customer service?
Yes.
Is that something that could have gone directly, that you didn't need a data science team for? Or was that one where, data scientists might not be familiar with Gen AI, with large language models. Many of them don't have experience even with transformer models, transformer models. Why do we need them involved in the process?
So I think the pilot was similar to that. So when we ran the pilot, because it was a very siloed use case on a contact center for a rescue side of the business, right?
I guess we should give folks a bit more context around what that use case is. So this is one where someone is calling into a call center, they've broken down on a highway, and...
Yeah, I think I can sort of give a broader context before we jump into it, right? I think some of you would know this brand called Green Flag. It's one of the leading sort of rescue provider. Green Flag is one of our brand in Direct Line Group. So when our customers on Green Flag, when they break down, they would call us and they will expect us to recover them, right? They could be in the middle of a highway or somewhere else, right? And they call a contact center agent will talk to them, ask them where they are, and they will then send a recovery. That's how in high level, that's how it works, right? And then what we were trying to do, and I sat down with some of our contact center agents, took some live calls to sort of understand where the pain points are. And one of the things we noticed is the type of cognitive load that they have when they're sort of taking those calls, because it comes back to there are legacy in big organizations. There are like knowledge documents in 2 or 3 different places, depending on the product and where the product was sort of, initiated and the policy was initiated. So it was quite a cognitive load on them to sort of find all those answers. And they do a fantastic job in finding all the solutions, right? But I thought maybe if we can take that cognitive load away from using a better search augmented by GenAI, that could give a better customer experience, a better agent experience. It will create a tool for training as well. We have an agent academy where we take contact center staff and train them up. It can be a tool for them. And we can actually then use that for our product recommendation that here are the types of things we always see. So there are like multiple sort of cases around that. And we took them through the whole innovation framework that I spoke about. But that use case, when we started off, to your point, where we saw is kind of more engineering heavy in the sense that we take some documents, we had to sort of, chunk them using through embedding model, K embedding store. There wasn't a need for, so to speak, a classical data science workflow. But what we learned in the process was once we put it on pilot and we started getting feedback from agents. Actually, the agents were part of the testing team as well. And that was my question before as well, that how do we, evaluating the answer quality was something. I mean, we were able to get the engineering done really quickly, but then evaluating the answer quality and having a contact center agents being a part of the development team and they sitting with the AI engineer was a eye-opener for me, how well we can sort of go from a 68% accurate answer to maybe 88% accurate answer just by getting their intent into the prompt and not even doing any fine-tuning. And then when we put it on pilot, what we realized is there are different types of questions that come from customers, the different type of answers, there are more deeper search that the agents wants to do. I think that's where we started thinking about, okay, we probably need to do fine-tuning with some of the answers we're getting. And I think that's where getting a data scientist involved in it, because now you're talking about the weights and how do you change the weights, and somebody who with a natural language background would sort of come in and be able to help that better. So that's how we sort of then started bringing some of the data scientists into the game as well. And we're doing that for other type of use cases as well nowadays, like, where we're trying to understand digital friction in our journeys. And we've been doing it for a while on digital data, which we get from Clickstream, but can we now augment that with insights coming off, say, contact center transcripts? And then we have a GenAI model on top of it to get more insights from it, which can go into that, right? And that's sort of trying to give us where in our digital journey, maybe our customers are not happy, right? And can we improve that bit to make it better?
Gotcha. Well, there's a lot in what you were saying there. I'm going back to early on when I'm thinking about what would have led to the success of this project. One of them sounds like it was just even the use case. This was a use case where if you're going to the contact center agents and asking them what they need help with, they definitely feel the need to be able to find the information faster, because the last thing that they want to be in the position of is having to tell somebody who's broken down the motorway, could you please hold for a little bit while I go in and find your policy and find out the details of your specific policy. So presumably they felt the visceral need to go in and improve this and work on it. So you have the natural buy-in from them there, which you're then able to convert into having them participate in the project and be willing to go in and help annotate additional data, provide feedback, go in and test the solution there. So it sounds like leverage that interest, that excitement, that pain to get that involvement and buy-in. But it sounded like there was more there as well when it came to things like cross-pollination, that there are ways in which what you're learning from this project and leveraging around in this case, the NLP that went into understanding and classifying these queries that are coming in here now helps you then with other unexpected parts of the business. That seems like a key component as well.
Yeah, I think whatever we do, especially in this generative AI space, we're all learning, right? When we saw the results which came out of the RAG architecture, which is what we used in the chatbot, right? We were like, and then while we're doing it, we were looking at models coming out every other week with more and more context length. And we were thinking, okay, the RAG was really good. We get all this web chat and transcripts, and we have we wanted to solve a problem for a while where we want to be really deep in understanding our digital journey. Why not use that, right? Why not use GenAI model, look at our web chat and transcripts, right? Obviously taking all the PII information away, right? Just the conversation bit, and then be able to get more insights from it, which then goes into our web clickstream data, right? And then we are able to do sort of analytics on it. But that was a learning from the RAG, that what we can do with these models. And if the models have higher context lengths, we can just literally take the big conversations and pass through it and then see how it works, right?
It seems like there was a lot of learning around operationalizing this, because presumably in the evaluation of those different models, there was a lot of learning about how to evaluate them. But it sounds like when you then went to fine-tuning these models, then all of a sudden you're in a very different conversation when it comes to operationalizing them. So if you want to fine-tune using a hosted LLM, often it's extraordinarily expensive. And then folks sometimes find themselves with the need to go in and pull it on-prem. Or indeed that you got data privacy issues around this. I guess I'm imagining it didn't turn out to be as easy yes, we already have a pre-existing relationship with this cloud vendor. I'm just going to use their hosted LLM and everything's going to be fine.
No, actually, when we started our first GenAI use case, services such as some of the hyperscaler services which we see today weren't available, at least in the UK. They're probably in the US, some part in the when our data cannot leave the country. We actually started with an open source model pre-hosted on Domino. We used one of the latest, I think we used one of the open source model from a French startup company. And that's how we started. And we actually fine-tuned on that as well. We haven't still moved outside using a public cloud API yet, but we are in the process. Now that we have the AI gateway in the latest Domino release, we are now going to open it up with the AI gateway. That sort of gives us the choice of whether, depending on the use case, which we want to go. We want to go AI gateway into a public cloud API versus self-hosted, smaller models. And we see the value in both, right? There's no one answer, unfortunately. It has to be two. But I also see a world where maybe both in the same use case, where we're kind of doing something where with the smaller model, and then the bigger model is almost like an overseer or checking some of the evaluators, something like that. So I was looking at some papers where agent architecture is kind of developing in that way, where smaller model does something very niche and then the bigger model checks something like that, or vice versa. So I see that world as well coming through.
Yeah, I often find myself talking to folks who have seemingly a very naive view of what a generative AI pipeline will look like. Instead of they're viewing that hopefully this is just going to be a bunch of transformation. Maybe there's a vector store in there, and then we'll just stick an LLM at the end of it, and we're going to be done. No. And in practice, I very rarely hear about that actually being something that went into production. Instead, it seems like there's this incredible creativity that is going on, both in terms of leveraging different large language models or the same large language models that is being queried and prompted.
And also a lot of pre-processing.
A lot of pre-processing.
You have to pre-process your data to suit the LLM calls that you want to make. So, and then I think a lot of thing that goes in is on the guardrailing. There's a lot of effort that has to go into guardrailing, and then the logging and all the thing and all of that. If you're platformizing them, that's great. If you're growing it all that organically, there's a lot of work to go to production with them, especially if you want to go to production with a responsible way.
Well, curious also whether or not there's complementarities between the predictive AI and generative AI side, that we were talking about these different use cases. But I guess I'm seeing more and more folks do interesting things when it comes to using things like upstream predictive models for something like case classification or topic modeling, and then downstream LLMs, and then vice versa, folks who are using an LLM for topic modeling and then feeding the results of that into either a traditional NLP or a predictive model.
Yeah.
Have you found that as well? That works.
I think some of our team is mostly they're probably doing an R&D on that, where we use a LLM to do topic model, and then we take that topic model as labels and feed it into an NLP to train an NLP for a use case. So we're seeing that a lot. What we're also seeing is we obviously use for feature engineering, use embeddings. Can we use LLM embeddings, which will give us better dense relationships? We're seeing that. The other way we are also looking at is we do a lot of customer segmentation type work because we are B2C insurer, right? We do a lot of customer segmentation, and then based on that segmentation, there's a lot of communication which goes out. So that's like an output from a classical ML model on customer segmentation, which creates a segment, which then can go into an LLM to create specific content around based on the segment and the need of segment. So like personalization type of thing. So we see that coming as well. We will start doing some R&D on that space.
Excellent. So, I mean, the bad news is that there's going to be a lot of innovation and a lot of change and a lot of development when it comes to how we're going to use these things. Yeah. And the good news is there's going to be a lot of innovation and a lot of development and a lot of change when it comes to these uses. Yes. There's plenty of, it's not like we're one and done and we've figured this out, and there's plenty of new opportunities and new creative ways that we're going to leverage these. Presumably, this is actually good news when it comes to strategic differentiation. So folks have asked, well, if anybody can go in and get these results with an LLM, then there's no competitive advantage for us. And it seems like this is actually kind of the opposite. It's in how you're using these models, the pipelines that you're creating around them, the guardrails, the pre-processing, all of the differentiation, a lot of the value seems to come from this very specific custom work that you need to do in the design of these.
Yes, there is a niche in execution, right? I must say that niche in execution will last for like another few years because it will get commoditized slowly over time. But I think that's where I feel by that time, organizations who have learned from that execution would go into a next order use cases, right? Where they use their power of brand, the IP which is there in their people and their staff and in data to create something really new, right? Which can create different markets for them. I don't think a lot of companies have done that with AI yet, but I feel that will happen. But then you can't jump there. You have to learn and go through this process to be able to be jumping there.
Yeah, so similar to what Fernando was saying earlier, that this is a journey, this is maturity. The rich are going to get richer in the sense of if you have built your foundations, you are going to be in a better position. And if you haven't, you're going to have to go through and accelerate that process of going through those different phases. It sounded like there are also best practices when it comes to having a diversified portfolio of projects, the conventional, traditional AI projects as well as generative AI projects. It sounds like there's also taking the lean startup mentality, having very, very strong buy-in participation by our stakeholders. Yeah. Are there any practices that are forgotten there?
I think having a very, what should I say, so people don't like the word governance, right? But you got to have a very good governance process which across the business can actually work with you. Because let's look at it this way. Once we are trying to sort of do AI, there will be different pockets where AI work is happening, right? And especially as a head of data science and AI, the governance does fall in that bracket that to make sure that it's all safe and responsible and so on, right? But then how do we create? So we have created a process which we can take any projects through, but then they can relate to that process. They get incentivized to be in the process, and that sort of makes governance. Or not say fun, but at least people trying to sort of not shying away from it, right? Because that would be a problem. But then putting governance by design in some of the platform work we're doing with Domino, which helps us as well, because it's not an overhead. It's by design. It's within the development process, and so on and so forth.
We definitely need to take that back to the product teams and say that your goal from now on is to make compliance fun. If they can do that, then we definitely have succeeded. Well, Raj, thank you so much for sharing your insights and thoughts.
That was Raj Mukherjee speaking at RevX London. To see all of the sessions from the RevX conferences in New York, Philadelphia, and London, please go to domino.ai/RevX. You've been listening to Data Science Leaders from Domino Data Lab. If you found our discussion insightful, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode. Your support helps us deliver cutting-edge content and keep the data science community informed and inspired. We appreciate every review. Until next time.